Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin Revel with 2F Tactical on our From the Vault series, featuring unique and historical firearms that come through our shop as well as our personal collection. And we have had an opportunity lately to have a bunch of historical firearms come through. We're pretty lucky and fortunate that CNR rifles and military battle rifles, military surplus and stuff makes a regular appearance in our shop, as well as some domestically produced, commercially available, unique historical items like the Winchester 1887 shotgun, for instance, that we did a video on not long ago, or the Winchester's model 1905 and 1910 semi-auto rifles. Today we actually have a collection of French rifles here. I've supplemented it with one from my personal collection just to show you guys a kind of more complete view. But last week we had the Kapracek rifle from Steyr. France experimented with that design, which ultimately ended up in the 1890 Lebel rifle that they adopted, which was again a tube-fed bolt-action rifle, very similar to the Kapracek rifle in some ways, taking the 8mm Lebel round. Very quickly, though, they realized that this kind of loading mechanism was extremely slow compared to the modern bolt actions at the time, like the Gewehr 88, the Mannlicher, and so on and so forth. So they very quickly went back to the drawing board to come up with a new rifle for the French military. And I know we like to make fun of the French, especially the military, quite often here in the United States. I'm as guilty of that as anybody else. But France, for the longest time, was on the leading edge of firearm design, going all the way back into the early to mid-1800s. So, for instance, in the American Civil War, a French technology that ended up making a large appearance on the battlefield was the Monet round. So, for muzzle-loading muskets prior to the Civil War, you just had a ball, a cast ball, usually lead, that you would ram down into your firearm. Well, when rifles became a thing, that ball became very hard to get it into the seat of the barrel because they had to fight the rifling grooves, which slowed down your reloading time. Therefore, a lot of countries just stuck with muskets because they were faster to reload. Well, a Frenchman came up with a round that was more pointed, a little more like a modern ballistic round, if you will, that it would spin as it corkscrewed into the barrel as you loaded it, and it was called the Monet round. And that is the first major leap forward in terms of ballistics with rifles, which is why rifles were more common in the American Civil War than muskets. And from there, we would eventually develop cartridges and Spitzer cartridges, which kind of just plays off the Monet round. So France actually had a cutting-edge firearms technology. They were ahead of the curve all the way up through, mid-20th century. That is what they did. So they went back to the drawing board looking at how can we update our battle rifle, our main battle rifle. So they came up with, French Berthier, came up with the Berthier rifles that would be chambered in that 8mm Lebel, featuring more modern technology to the time. So let's just take a look at this M16 MLE M16 carbine. This is not the M16 that you're thinking of. You're thinking something, usually when you hear an M16, along the lines of this, right? Well, this is the very first M16. And these rifles were extremely popular. And again, featuring more modern designs. So it was a bolt-action rifle with a bent bolt featuring the en-bloc internal magazine, where you would load via cartridges into this internal magazine and they would come up to chamber. Very, very quick to reload compared to that tube-fed single feeding cartridges into your tube. And you got to think, under pressure and being shot at, time matters. So this updates that. They did feature a very World War I era design piece, which is, this is a rifle stack. I don't know what you want to call it, like clip, if you will. So the idea was these rifles, if you want to stack them together, which you would when you had downtime, you could make your triangle by interlocking these little lugs together. That is something that they would do if you're just hanging out by a tree You would stack your rifles together, and you and your squad mates. If you ever see the movie 1917, this is represented in a few scenes where they have the rifles stacked in kind of like a pyramid shape. So that is what this piece here is for. The bayonet would go over and clip in right here. The bayonets did vary for this, and you'll see a very quick succession of the Berthier rifles. So this is the carbine version, the short version. Then you would immediately jump to the 1907 15 version, which is kind of more closely resembles that Kropatschek rifle in terms of its bolt with the straight line, large knob, and the heavy cuts on the bolt. But again, featuring your modern sight systems that you would normally see on bolt actions at the time, still has that en-bloc magazine that would feed over the top, as well as your rifle stacking, I don't know what you want to call it, this rifle stacking attachment. The bayonets of the time were a little bit different. So when we think of a bayonet, we think of a bladed bayonet, typically. Something like this. Very similar to that. That's what you would see in World War II, and you would see the U.S. specifically use those in World War I. Well, the French did it a little bit differently. They had a spiker bayonet. Very thin, very long. This is what they would use. It had a little bit different locking mechanism. This little locking lug here that's under spring tension is how you would lock it onto the rifle, and you would put this over the barrel, and it would slide into place and lock right there. These technically got banned later by the Geneva Convention as being inhumane. The spike star bayonet is very much designed so you can't suture the wounds closed, that they make a punching, flailing out wound tracks, so therefore it's harder to stitch up, makes it more deadly. That's why the Geneva Convention eventually banned them. We won't get into all that, but they did feature those bayonets for these rifles. So they had the M16, the carbine, which is this one. They also had a longer version for the regular infantry. So you're thinking cavalry and stuff more for the shorter rifle. Because you're on a horse, you don't want the long, kind of cumbersome rifle. That would be where this one comes in. This one's from my personal collection. This is an MLE M16 8mm Lebel rifle made by Saint Etienne. There's a few different manufacturers that you'll see. Saint Etienne is the more common one. This one is from the Yuli factory, this particular carbine. So you have a few different designs. These would make service appearance all the way up through World War I. And really all the way up through the 1940s, the Berthier rifles were being made. What happened in 1940? Why did production stop? Nazi Germany conquered France. That's why. And you would see the German era of occupation change how firearms were made in France, as well as change the weapons that they used. Truthfully, though, by World War II, these were fairly obsolete guns. These were kind of out of date. They did feature smokeless powder, unlike the Kropatschek rifles, at least what they were designed for. They were upgraded, I should say. These were en-bloc clip fed, meaning that the clip would eject out the bottom, very similar to a Steyr M95 34. Or even, say, an M1 Grand. Now, the difference is M1 Grand would eject upon empty out the top. These would eject out the bottom upon empty. Made it a lot faster for reload, though. So it was very innovative at the time. These rifles saw a ton of combat. You got to think that the French in the early 20th century, in the late 19th century, they were an empire. They had colonies all over the world, Africa, the French Indochina, for instance, which we call Vietnam now. These rifles served all over, and in fact, some of these rifles still showed up in the Vietnam War on both sides, just because they were readily available. The French had them, and when they left a lot of them behind. Viet Cong and so on got their hands on some of them. They did make some appearances. They're not widely used. Obviously, technology had progressed beyond that at that point, but you did see some appearances of it. These rifles served the French well. And I know, again, we like to joke about the French military, but truly the French military was considered one of the greatest of the time all the way up through World War II. Their main flaw in World War II was the Maginot Line, expecting that to work, a fixed position to work, and not keeping up with modern tactics of what would become blitzkrieg that the Germans used. They were still stuck in the trench warfare mindset of, we dig encampments and don't move and just kind of shell each other. That's really was their flaw. It was a tactics thing, not necessarily a weaponry thing. It did cost them, of course, but when you look at their designs, again, look at Ian McCollin's videos on French guns, they very much push firearm technology forward. One of the coolest guns is the Lamont revolver that made its appearance in the Civil War, that had a single shotgun round in it as part of the revolver. But that's a video for a different day, and unfortunately, I don't have one, and probably never will. They're extremely rare. But when it comes to the French World War I era guns, it's very odd to get all, three of them in the same location. The only one I don't have is the 1886 Lebel. If I did, that'd be awesome. It would show you the complete progression of World War I era French firearms, or at least French rifles, I should say. We have more French guns that will come to you, because we do have a unique Count 9, which is a World War II era pistol, striker fired, that we have in our personal collection. We'd love to show with you guys. But until next time, please like, comment, and subscribe. We very much appreciate all the feedback. Every time I see stuff like this, I get excited. I can't wait to bring it to you. And like I said, we have a ton of stuff that just came in, and I cannot wait to bring it to you. But till next time, we'll see you then.